This is all about Sharia law and women. You can tell the nature of the Islam in your community or in your environment depending on how fundamental they are. If they're fundamentalists, that means that they want to be just like the early followers of Muhammad. In fact, if they could, they'd like to emulate Muhammad, who was the perfect man in their mind. So we're going to talk about this. In America, we have equal protection under the law for everyone, but not under Sharia. Women are not protected. In fact, female sexuality is a major issue, and there's a major suppression of it. So we'll talk about that. The bottom line is that women are property. Women are not equal to men. Women are property of a father or a husband, or indirectly of the imam who rules the community with an iron fist. So think about that. In every community where there's a mosque, there's an imam, and the imam is the definitive answer for everything, including the interpretation of Sharia and Sharia behavior. There's a definite connection between women, sex, violence, and honor. We'll talk about that at length. And again, the thing that you just cannot get away from is every day men are superior to women. This gives men privileges, again, that relate to sexual activity. A man can have 4 wives. In addition to that, it is perfectly sanctioned for men to have slaves, sex slaves. Temporary marriages might be another way to say that. Rape there is such a thing as no-fault rape. We'll talk about that. And of course, children can be married at a very, very early age to older men. Much of this is criminal behavior. Unfortunately, it's sanctioned by Sharia, and we have Sharia in the critical mass in Michigan and in other parts of the United States. So let's start with the veil. We have to move pretty quickly. We hope there will be recordings of this, so if you have additional questions, we can get into this using the recordings, but I want to just make the point. This notion of women covering is very, very significant. On one way, it's a way of saying that they're rejecting Western decadence, but it turns out that there's more to it than that. Ayan Hirsi Ali is a Muslim, who's ex-Muslim from Somalia, and she's spoken clearly about this. Women who are wearing a veil are identifying themselves as private and restricted property. They're accepting their position as non-persons, as slaves. You can imagine if a boat came into Detroit and men and women got off the boat in chains. That would be incredible in this day and age. Well, we certainly see women getting off of airplanes in Detroit and coming into our communities, choosing to wear the veil, which basically says that they're in a subordinate role, and they accept that role. They're enslavement. Covered women are, well, it's interesting. In the mentality of Sharia, covered women identify themselves so that they're not sexually harassed. If you're a woman in the Islamic community and you're covered, that means you're practicing, you're a fundamentalist, you accept your role as a second-class citizen, you are connected to a man, your father, your husband. However, if you're in a mall, and let's say a bunch of women, the women in this room all went to the mall, they dress as they wanted to, and they're walking around, they're free, and it's America. If a woman who is covered goes in the door of the mall and is amongst non-covered women, the non-covered women have now been identified as a target. So if you're not covered to the Muslim Sharia-compliant male, you are a target. You are not yet Sharia. You're not a follower of Muhammad. You're not an Islamic person. Therefore, you are a target for rape, and it's okay. It's okay to rape the infidel woman. The infidel woman is not covered, and that's a sign that sexual harassment and rape is acceptable and sanctioned under Sharia. And again, we can begin to look at references in the literature. Tell thy wives and thy daughters that they should cast their outer garments over their bodies and be not molested. In other words, if you do not cover your target for molestation. And you'll see that if you look at the way jihadis attack around the world. You'll see women, you'll see, by the way, you'll see younger women at concerts, at sporting events. The attacks in Manchester, England, for example. So women have become, Western women, uncovered women, in their own countries have now become the targets for escalating rape. Europe, Sweden, Germany, it's a really monster problem. And again, there are justifications in the source material. And so here we're looking at a picture. This is Afghanistan in 1972. Afghanistan was not an Islamic state at that time. It was more secular. Women went to school, women had jobs. Oh my goodness, women wore skirts. And now you look, in this case, it would be 30 years, a few years ago, 5 years ago. Women are covered. This is an Islamic state. This is a state moving back towards fundamental Islam, toward fundamental Sharia compliance. The women are covered.